So, I guess if I'm going to just do an impromptu, with nothing to say, I've got nothing to talk about. I did so many other people come to these things and they've got complete scripts about what they want to talk about, stuff they want to go through, gaming industry. I don't. I'm just going to leave it entirely up to the chat. So when people start to come, if they come, we'll see what kicks in. I'm just going to quickly make sure that I'm not interrupting anybody else that's live. No, looks fairly clear. That's cool. And I suppose quick look and see if there we go. There's me. Bless him. So I'm on my own at the moment, but hopefully people will turn up. I'm just going to pause myself over there. I've redone the place. What do you think? I've literally moved myself 180 degrees in my little studio and just set things up a little bit differently. There's a big black blob behind me here, which is actually a TV. I don't know yet. I may run some graphics or something on the back of there. We'll see. Two watching and now one watching. The one was me in the first place. Wow, how the mighty have fallen. It's you know what, it's a Sunday. I'd say you can't expect a great deal, can you? And I'm not playing games. You know, people want to tune in and see stuff, don't they? They don't want to just necessarily tune in and hear me. But I like to throw this out there from time to time and see what response we get. While we're waiting on anybody to turn up, let's choose a different background, see what we've got here. Whoops, didn't mean to move me out of the image completely. What have we got here? That one's quite nice, but it's a bit Matrix. This one's a bit Matrix too, though. It's more Matrix, isn't it? It's quite nice, that one. It's quite like that. This is me in heaven. This one I uploaded this one myself, and that one. This one for Rokk reveal, but I've never used it because it kind of goes with the graphics, but I think it's all a bit too busy. This one is okay, but a tad distracting. That's not animated at all. And then you've got the statics, which are quite nice. I did have this one. This is an old school Rokk one that I've used a lot in the past. So yeah, Tuesday's Rokk reveal, as you know, and I often threaten that I'm going to do an impromptu, but I rarely do. And it's because, and as there's only me and me here right now, it's just because it's just been incredibly busy at my business. I've essentially taken 12 months out with lockdown, and all of a sudden it's hit with a bang. And it's not because we've suddenly got masses of new business. It's just there's stuff to get done, and it's been quite good for me. It's been quite therapeutic to get back in the driving seat and do stuff. So that was all good. And I've been working this weekend on porting the company website across to a different platform, which I'm quite pleased with the results. Well, still only me here. That's quite unusual. I usually have a couple of people jump in. Maybe I can't actually promote it from Restream. It's one of the things it doesn't do. I'm not overly worried. I'd just be happy if there was one other person that I could talk to, because there's not much point in talking to myself. As much as a couple of people have given me likes, and that's nice, so thank you for that. But visually, it's not looking too bad. I'm just having a look. The old live stream there, it's not too bad. So a couple of people have joined. That's nice. I just needed to refresh. Say hello in the chat, would you? I feel all lonely here. It'd be lovely to say hi. So I'm just doing a little impromptu, really. No agenda, nothing to report. Roger, thank you, my friend. Bless you. And as I was saying at the outset, a lot of people do these and they go, right, yeah, I want to talk about this thing that's Patrick, how are you? Thank you for saying hello. It gets lonely out here. A lot of people do this and they have an agenda, and I really don't. I don't. There's nothing in the wonderful wide world of gaming right now that has got my irie, or that I feel I need to share with you my thoughts on. I'm not opinionated in that respect. I mean, I've got opinions, and I'm always happy to share them, but I'm not somebody that feels like I need to broadcast them necessarily. But there's always stuff going on, isn't there? I've had my head wrapped in the Ascent on Xbox for the last 2 weeks, and I completed it yesterday, which was really cool. I'm only about I think three rewards away from platinum as well, which is pretty cool. It's unusual for me to. I try and finish every game. If I start a game and I enjoy it, I try and complete it. I'm not a magpie. I'm not somebody who will just keep trying out games. Give it 10 minutes, an hour, a couple of hours a week, and then walk away. Yeah, I did, Patrick. I played. Game Pass has been. It has literally been a game changer for me. I have been. Originally, I guess I was a PC gamer, but certainly in my time with consoles, and that's PS2, PS3, PS4, PS5, it's been PlayStation, and I personally prefer the interface on PlayStation, and the controller is just sublime. I really love cloud for the convenience. Stadia is, for me, still the supremo as far as cloud is concerned. Although the model at the moment, I'm still not sure. I thought I had a good take on their model, but I don't anymore. And I don't really know, hand on heart, I don't really know where they're going. I don't think they're going anywhere in that sense. I'm not suggesting that I think, like some people, then give them 6 months. No, I think Stadia as a platform, as a technology, is here for good and will not only fuel, Google Stadia, but will also be the backbone of other entrants yet to be seen. Because I don't think anybody in the market right now is looking to change whatever technology they've got on the go. I would love to see PlayStation do more with PS Now. They're getting closer. We're getting Codex, my good friend. Good to see you, my man. I'm just chewing the fat, kicking the breeze. Yeah. So Roger, the thing with, the Ascent has its challenges as a game, and that's largely because it's from a very small team of about 11 in Sweden, I think. So yeah, there are parts to it. Yeah, boy, Twiz. Hello, my friend. Long time no see. Thank you for joining me on my tiny impromptu. It's very good of you. What I found with the Ascent was, though, that there's a few little things. The deeper into it you go, you play high level enemies, and they drop better weapons. But for the longest time, I was playing with a primary and a secondary that I thought kicked and were the best, and I couldn't complete the game. The very final main campaign mission. I was at it for hours and I just couldn't finish it off. And I watched a guy on YouTube. I thought, as you do, right, okay, what am I doing wrong here? Because I'd actually found a way to farm XP a little glitch in the game, and I thought I was the first one to find it. Like, turned out I wasn't. Annoyingly, I found someone else had, but I got my. I spent about 4 hours farming XP to get my character really high above the level of the enemies in the final mission. Because I thought that would all I need. That's all I need. Hey Dom, good to see you, my friend. But it turned out, watching this guy on YouTube, that it wasn't that at all. It was actually the primary that I was using that I thought was the best. It wasn't. And in fact, the one that he was using, or she, and the one that I switched to is Dominator, and which is actually a gun you get very early on in the game anyway. But you can level them up. So you have to go through the game, you pick up little objects that you can use to upgrade your weapons at upgrade vendors. So, you just keep upgrading and upgrading and upgrading. I think the highest level is a purple. But I have as yet to manually upgrade the weapons to the highest level. That's actually one of the achievements that you can get to complete. I think I've got 4 left, and that's one of them. But I've still got a few side missions I'm kicking over and getting them done. But anyway, it turned out that was the reason. And once I'd switched to that gun, killed it. I managed to get that final thing done in about 3 minutes, and it previously taken me hours. So, but it's Roger, I really enjoy it. It's not that kind of genre, that side, what you call it, the kind of perspective down thing. It's never been my thing, really. I've played a couple of games. There was a zombie one I played once, which I enjoyed. I forget what it was called. It was on PlayStation. But this is the first time, and why this drew me in was the quality of the graphics and the animation, which is just astounding, and understandably so, because the 11. I think it's a lot more now, but when they made this game, it was a core team of about 11. But they're all from AAA. All of them, in their own right, are legendary in the gaming industry. So they've come from God of War and Ubisoft and some of the best AAA games out there. So it's actually a powerhouse that delivered it, and the graphics on it just stunning, absolutely stunning. And the cut scenes and but the key thing is the RPG elements, making sure you upgrade your character, get the best weaponry. They make it quite easy, because as you do a comparison, it will compare what you're wearing or what gun you're using with what you're looking at, and it will show red, or I think it's red if it's lower, green if it's higher, and blue if it's the same. So really quickly, I just used to go down, and the stuff with the highest greens, I switched it on. And then as you go through the various main missions, and even side missions give you stuff, augmentations and bits and pieces. I've loved it. I really, really enjoyed it. It got right under my skin. And truthfully, because I accidentally deleted 2 weeks worth of progress weekend before last, and then as I don't rage, I'm not a rager. I didn't rage quit or anything. I just left it for a couple of hours, and then the next day I started again, and it took me about 4. Actually, I looked on it. It said I'd played, including the 2 weeks, about 28 hours in total, and there's still some side missions to finish, and that included getting almost to the end the first time around. So it's not a massive game, but you could certainly put a good 20 plus hours into it, I think. But yeah, the more you play it, the more it gives. It's a good little filler. I enjoyed it, and the whole point of this was it was on Game Pass, and as much as my heart is PlayStation and cloud gaming and Stadia, I can't knock the fact that these games are appearing day and date for free as part of a thing that I got as part of my purchase of an Xbox Series X. I'm talking about the Ascent, Lord Vivid, and thank you for popping in, my friends. Good to see you. I tell you what I'll do, guys. I'll pop the chat overlay up on screen. It's always a bit of a delay, about 30 seconds, and it'll eventually populate. But you'll see then what's being said. So that's the thing. And look, I'm not I'm nobody's fanboy. in any realm of life, be it religion, sport, or politics. I'm very much my own man. I do my own thinking, and I don't need to feel part of a group or a gang. And actually, partly the whole kind of clickiness of the Stadia community over the last few months, if anything, it's put me off a little bit, because I don't, I've seen people pilloried and rounded on because they've admitted to not just playing on Stadia. I've always been open about that. I'm very lucky. I've got a gaming rig, which I rarely use. I've got the Xbox, which I wouldn't use in preference to PlayStation, but they keep putting these damn games on there. Hello, Blake. How are you, my friend? Thanks for popping in, guys. And PlayStation I go back to really because of Destiny, and there's a new season coming up there, because that's where all my boys are. That's my original clan were PlayStation, and all my old mates that I spent years and years playing with. So I love the fact that I've got that piece of kit over there, and that's my old favorite. It's like an old, it's like your favorite pair of slippers. And Lee, nice to see you, my friend. Thanks for popping in. And Krampus as well. Wow, the gang are in town. This is, I'll be honest with you. Well, my daughter kicked me out the lounge because I've been watching Suits. It passed me by, and obviously Meghan Markle recently married one of the royal family, and I didn't really know anything about her at all. And I'd heard that she was in Suits, and my daughter sort of watched it, and I'd come to the end of something on Netflix. I thought, well, I may as well give it a go, expecting a really highbrow kind of Breaking Bad thing, which it really isn't. I don't know if you guys have seen it. It's great. I love it. It's quick fire, actually quite well written. Each episode is a different story with a kind of an arc, but a simple arc. It's love triangle type stuff. But it's simple. I'm loving it. I'm binging through that. And anyway, I was kicked out the lounge after about 5 episodes today. And because my daughter wanted to watch The Office for about the 6th time, and I thought, I don't know what to do now. And I thought, well, I rarely stream anymore, so I thought I would come on and say hello to you chaps and chapesses. So forgive me for being. I know I've not been very, very in the moment, very present. If you go back. Turn of the year, we had Cloudburst, we had Rokk and Ray, we had the Friday night late, whatever it was called, Rock at Night, whatever, and other stuff, and there was a lot going on. But I've just got incredibly busy with my business, which is a blessing, because during lockdown, you sort of, I'm here in my garage. The studio is my garage, and it's not just where I do this, it's where I work as well, or have done through lockdown. So what happened was, the story, completely cards on the table, is that one of my key designers went long-term sick, and somebody had to fill in, and these were projects that it would have been difficult to have outsourced them or brought in a contractor, because by the time they'd have understood what was going on and everything else, we would have had unhappy clients. So I picked up the work. But what it did for me was it pulled me back into, that I kind of felt separated, and in a way, content creating had become my new career. And I don't mean that in the truest sense. Because it is a hobby, it's a passion. I love doing it, but it certainly isn't something that Rockstars at Night. Thank you, Krampus. I'm getting old, mate. I mean, there is no way. Even the guys in our community who have the highest followers and decent sized members and so on are nowhere near. The money they make is nowhere near enough to support a career. You've got to be up in the hundreds of thousands before that's even a potential reality, and there are very, very few that, as we know, that get to that point. So it's very much a hobby, and it's great, and I love it. It's good fun. And I've met some amazing people. Most of you are actually in the chat right now. Bless you. Good friends and people that you wouldn't, that we all wouldn't know or meet if it hadn't, in a strange way, been down to this pandemic throwing us all in together. But the business is, at the end of the day, the thing that pays for my life and keeps the walls from the door. So when the business says we need you, I turn up. But it's been great because it's allowed me to get my head back in the game. It's allowed me to do some stuff in there that I haven't done for a long time, the website work and actually just getting to see the processes again of the business. And every boss, every company owner really should do this on a regular basis, at least once a year. You should get down and dirty and get stuck into the actual work and look at the processes again and look at the motivation of your team and see the areas where there are cracks appearing or that have massive fissures because you've taken your eye off the ball. And that's what happened. So I've been spending a lot of time, a huge amount of time. Sean, bless you, my friend. You're an absolute diamond. Punch in the air. I love you to pieces, my friend. Thank you. He's actually, you are a genuinely lovely guy. And I mean this as well. I mean, Stuart, how are you? So many lovely people that I am proud to call friends that I wouldn't have met if it wasn't for this hobby. Krampus, you're right. It is that kind of thing. I can't be undercover in my business. It's not that big, but I definitely haven't been as present as I should have been. And you forget, when you've started a company, you forget that actually the reason it was probably successful in the first place was because of whatever it was you brought to the business. And when you distance yourself, and you bring other people in to control the various aspects of the business, and you obviously try carefully to bring people in that will carry on the torch of whatever the virtues and values are that you've brought to the business, but ultimately they're never you. And I think that's the bit that was missing. So I had to. It was important for me, and I'm really pleased that I've done it. And it has started me on a journey of rediscovering the values of the business, and to the extent that I'm adding new services. We're going off in certain directions that are slightly different to directions we've been off in the past. And the one thing I found, call it asking the universe if you want, I don't know, but the one thing that I have always found is that when you start putting energy into something, actions have consequences, and often those consequences can be positive if you put in positive action. If you put in negative action, then I've typically found you're inviting negative consequences. But I've been putting in positive actions, and positive consequences have been coming back. I mean, for instance, so I've been filling in for this guy, bless him. I mean, an absolutely lovely fella, but sadly he's fallen by the wayside. He's not going to come back. His challenges are too great, sadly. But then out of the blue comes a fella looking for some freelance work who's actually done some freelance work for us in the past, and we were quite impressed with him. And in the space of about 2 or 3 emails, I've offered him a job and he's taken it. And so he starts on the 23rd of August. He's a fantastic designer, a fantastic web builder, developer. He's built sites for some really impressive, well-known businesses. Kumna, how are you, my friend? Thanks for popping in. I really appreciate it. And that's what I mean about how when you put out positive action, or call it a vibe, call it a prayer, call it asking the universe, or whatever the thing is, positive consequences come back, and they always have done for me, always. And it's funny because up until about I want to say 2014, 15 15, 16, up until about then, I always had this attitude that no matter how dark or bleak things looked, there will always be an answer, there will always be a solution, because there always had been. And I lost that for a few years. I lost that kind of cloak of invincibility that I think you have when you start in business when you're relatively young. I've been in business since I was about, I don't know, early 20s, 21, 22. I mean, I've been dallying with it before, but when I sort of started taking it seriously, I mean, I've been designing websites since 1994. Well, the World Wide Web wasn't invented until 1991. And the first commercial website that I ever built was in 1995. So, you know, I've been around this industry really since its dawn. But in those days, yeah, you know, I just felt like whatever I did, it would always work out, and it typically did. And I lost that, and I've just got it back again now. And I just feel again that, you know, you put out positive vibes. If you do good things, then good things get done to you. And, you know, if you are by nature negative, then negativity will always be your nature. That's quite good, that, isn't it? Remember that one. Yeah, Lee, you're right, mate. We have lost some, and I know your situation. People that we should never have lost. This pandemic has been cruel, but the upside is you're right. We have, you know, in adversity, people tend to come together, don't they? It doesn't matter what country. I don't think you can say it's a uniquely British thing. I think it's the same the world over. You know, it doesn't matter how people may try to compete with each other, whether it's in business or sport or some other form. When the chips are down and people need help, people tend to come, you know, the goodness in people tends to come through. Not everybody. You know, some people are opportunists and they see that as a way to just further their own gain. But I think most people are innately good. And, you know, I think somebody once said to me, no, unless there's something medically wrong, no child is born evil. No child is born bad. And if you watch any child, their mind is just a sponge. You know, they react to smiles. Children react to smiles. They don't react to frowns. If you smile at any baby, that baby will smile back. It is in us all to be positive by nature. You reap what you sow. You're absolutely right, Krampus. You reap what you sow. I have found that to be the case in life. I try really hard to be, you know, the old biblical thing. Be good to, you know, do to others as you would have them do to you, and that's how I've always been. And sometimes you don't. Sometimes you do things, but I tell you what, though, the difference is if you go away and you think about it and you know that you could have handled something differently, or you know that you didn't handle it the right way. I had not an argument, but a discussion with my wife last night, and afterwards I thought I was too emotional in that. I wasn't rational. I didn't really let her have an in the way that she deserved, and I felt really bad for that. And I think that's important, because we don't always make the right decisions and we don't always say the right things. But the difference is, I think, if you go away and you realize that you've done wrong and you learn from that and you take it forward from there, that's the key thing. I mean, all this stuff is basic, isn't it? It's nothing. We all know we all know the differences between good and bad, right and wrong. There's some evil stuff happening in the world right now. You know, I look across what's happening in Afghanistan, and it breaks my heart, because I know there are people who were striving for a better place for their families to live in, who are probably going to be eradicated in the worst possible way now. And that's heartbreaking, because a lot of those people will be singled out for doing what is inherently the right thing, recognizing that we all deserve freedom, we all deserve peace, we all deserve respect, that things like education shouldn't be a right, they should be, shouldn't be, something that you choose to give. It should be a right. And I think I'd love to think differently, but sadly I don't think. I think that has been wiped out. And whether you believe as I do that trying to be the world's police force is never going to win, it's never going to play out. You shouldn't go interfering in the affairs of others by thinking that you can go in and eradicate an ideology and replace it with your own, because it's like the thing in Star Trek which I think Roddenberry was right when he wrote this as well into the main fabric of Star Trek, that you shouldn't go into a new planet that has never seen humans before, or Starfleet, and try to change them into your image, because clearly every species has a right to develop and evolve in whatever form it should. It shouldn't be interfered with. And in a way, when you invade or liberate another country in the name of democracy or capitalism or whatever it is that you think you're bringing, it's no different to when you look at what happened to indigenous species in America and Australia, South America, over the centuries, where sometimes they were, sometimes you would have, say, the conquistadors, whose only goal and only aim was to find gold, to further wars that were happening back in their own country. And on the other hand, you would have religious fundamentalists, or just people that felt that they were taking their religion to a country to better that country. Both of them felt they were doing the right for themselves, but of course what they ended up doing was either bringing syphilis or alcoholism, or destroying culture, wiping out millennia of evolution of a species. And in a way, it's no different to today. Yes, we can look at another country and we can frown and say, that's wrong. That's not how you should be as a country. But we also shouldn't forget that it's only a few short hundreds of years ago that we were the same. And the problem is, I think you can encourage, I think we should encourage, I think we should all encourage the basic virtues of what we believe to be freedom and the right of choice and so on. I believe that, but I think if you invade a country and wipe out a particular ideology, then you have to expect consequences. Actions have consequences, positive or negative. And in this case, there's resentment there. In the Middle East, there's deep resentment of others foisting their beliefs on your country and then walking away, because there's a change of political mindset. One president goes, another one comes in. One prime minister goes, another one comes in. Different ideas, different ideals. But you can't just interfere in another country's evolution and then walk away. And so, the minute you adopt, it's like adopting a child. You can't adopt a child from a family of what you believe to be abusive parents, have them live with you for 6 months and then kick them out because, you need a bit more room. And actually you're fed up paying that child. You're fed up paying for the extra food or what have you. It's a bit of a rough analogy, but the point remains. So there's some really heartbreaking stuff happening, and I've been reading on Twitter a lot of journalists, Afghani journalists, who actually probably weren't even didn't even live in Afghanistan, but they've gone out there to cover, and of course have now been locked in, and who knows what their fate will be. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be some grueling, harrowing stories coming out there. But there you go. On the positive side, I mean, I'm hoping we're coming towards maybe zero games. I really feel for the people. They got to experience freedom, and now that will be gone. That's the thing, isn't it? You know, you can't just. It's not a job that's done overnight. And in any case, who are we to assume that our flavor of freedom is the correct one for another country? We can't simply walk in and eradicate culture. It's no different. As I said, sometimes you've seen religions that have gone into deepest Africa or the Amazon or wherever, and they take the word of God, and of course they believe that to be absolutely the right thing to do. Never stopping for 1 minute to think that why would God have allowed a civilization to evolve and develop over hundreds of thousands of years if it was wrong? I mean, it's simple, isn't it? But whether you think they're right or wrong, stop and think about this for a second. What was God doing? Why did he allow them to develop in the Amazonian forests of South America, developing their own incredibly complex culture and way of life, if all this time they were just waiting for a priest to turn up? It doesn't make any sense. But there's the world. I personally believe religion isn't a great thing, but faith is something that if you have it, I envy you. I have. I remember I spent an evening once with the imam, who he was the imam for British Armed Forces. A fantastic guy, just an amazing, inspiring guy. And I have respect for all faiths, not religions, because religions typically are human created, politically created, but faiths for sure. And of course, most of them converge anyway on a single source, which is the shame of it all. And so many good things. There are so many good things to be taught from faiths, but it's unfortunate when they get wrapped up in religion, and then we see that used for gain. How many churches, how many preachers in the States, for example, drive fly private jets and live in mansions in the name of God, and that can't be right, surely. Where does it say in the Bible about that being a great thing? I think it says the complete opposite, in fact. So yeah, there you go. Got a bit preachy, but so that's why I've not been very present, because I've just been absolutely thrown myself into the business, and I've loved every second of it, and I feel. But I don't want to stop doing this, because I enjoy it. And, and while people, and bless you all, turn up to either listen to me or watch me with Ray and Aaron and John or any number of other people, I'll keep doing it. So what's your boy Twiz saying? Oil. Sounds like we need to bring them some freedom. Yeah, exactly. The freedom of capitalism. It has its place, but the problem is with any ideology, whether it's capitalism, communism, jihadism, whatever it is as an ideology, ultimately it will be harnessed by a few individuals for their own gain. I mean, when has that never been a moment in history that's been the case? And, I look at ant colonies, and I think those guys have got it sorted. They all know their place. They all work for each other. None of them starve because, they're all farming for the good of the community. They all make sure that the species continues, which ultimately, let's face it, that's all we're on the planet for. I don't know why. I don't think anybody knows why. There is this one truth in the universe, and that is the replication of the living cell. That's it, isn't it? That's, if you think about it, that's all we do. We procreate ourselves, clones of ourselves, and nature tries to weed out defective genes and keep the strong ones going, which is survival of the fittest and Darwinism in essence. But ultimately, it is about procreation of the living cell in every corner of the universe that we're aware of. We know that bacteria exist in space. We know this because we find it on meteorites that crash to Earth, and undoubtedly that is what sparked life off on Earth, as it would have done on other planets. And whether that life then went on to evolve into multiple-celled and complex organisms like it did on Earth or not, we've yet to discover. I suspect it did. I think the odds of there not being life as complex as on Earth on other worlds in a virtually infinite universe is mathematically irrational. But all of it shares this, as far as we know, certainly on everything that we've ever found, whether it's COVID or whether it's a cat, all of it is about procreation, and almost for no obvious reason other than procreation. It's bizarre, really. Dogma, yeah, I think I've seen that one, but I can't remember. But look, it's easy. It's always easy to be an armchair critic, isn't it? And the truth is that we, as a species, are incredibly complex, and yet we carry prehistoric baggage, and that's something that is incredibly difficult as a species to manage. The fact that we have these, the technology that we have. This ability for me to sit in a garage on the southwest of England and communicate with a dozen people around the world, that's unbelievable. I mean, it's unbelievable. And yet, equally, all of the basic instincts of my prehistoric ancestry still lives within me. That desire to protect my immediate grouping, like my family and the people around me. That's territorialism. That's what sparks most wars. It's what sparks, gang fights and so on. Territorialism, and it is simply the inbuilt desire to protect your genealogy, your offspring. That's within us all. And if you have a dog. I haven't had a dog for many years, but all dogs are essentially an extension of their original wolf lineage. And you've only got to watch how wolves are to each other to see all of those traits are still there in the common domesticated dog. I mean, we mistake them for other things, which we use anthropomorphism, and which is a fancy word for making something applying human traits to an animal, which is what all Disney cartoons are about, for example. Anthropomorphism. Whereas the dog isn't trying to be a human at all. What it's trying to find within its human circle are its wolf instincts. And so, it looks for the alpha male, and it does the lying on its back, as do dogs in the wolf culture. To show subordination. It rubs itself in the smell of other animals' waste, because that's a way that it can hide its own smell when it's hunting prey. All of these things they're just extensions of its ancient, and not just ancient, but bred out. You'd think it'd been bred out of them over and over. You've got these little animals now, a pocket-sized thing, which is a dog, and yet it looks nothing like a wolf. Because we've created little monster animals in the name of domestication. But the wolf's instincts are still there, as is the case with humans. All of our prehistoric traits still exist. And of course, that's what gaming is all about. Whether we are, for me, what the games I love are the ones where I'm doing a chore. So RPG games where I've got to go on a mission and find something, and that's hunting and gathering, right? It's your basic hunter-gatherer. Other people prefer PvP. That's competition. That's tribalism. That's you against another tribe. Because these are people that would have existed, their traits would have existed in prehistory. You would have had those in the immediate community who were better suited at defending the tribe. And they would either go on the attack or they would be defensive, and whatever it took. And then you'd have those that were more the worker bees, and those that were the old sages of the community. And all those traits exist today, but they've got no outlet anymore because we live in these vast communities that have been made bigger by social media. So when we, I always blame the tractor, actually, as a joke. Because what happened was, up until agriculture became the prime industry of the world, we all lived in small communities where we probably had a little bit of farm, but if we needed eggs because we didn't have chickens, then we'd barter a bit of a pig for some eggs or whatever. And then as agriculture became more mechanized, people that lived in rural communities were out of a job. So they had to move into the towns and work in towns and in factories. And of course, they then, in these massive urban communities, which are completely alien to us as a species, we are designed to work in small communities, either as extended families, grandparents, aunts and uncles, our own children and so on, living in the same house or the same cluster of houses, or in a small village or hamlet with half a dozen different families, but never in towns of 2, 3, 5, 7, 20 million people. And so the community aspect has been eradicated, and social media to an extent has filled in some of that hole, but it's also been prime for spreading misinformation amongst people, because again, it is our nature to believe what we're told by people we trust. Because if someone said to you, there's a lion heading towards the village, it is in your instinct to accept and believe that, because you don't want to hang around and get eaten. So I trust this individual that tells me there's a lion coming, I'm heading in that direction, or I'm about to go and get my spear. Now, when your friends on social media say, there's a bunch of people of a different color that are headed towards our country and they're going to take it over and rape our women, and all the other hideous stories that have propagated through social media that have led to the rise of politicians that should never have been let anywhere near the role of leader of a country, or senator, or prime minister or peer. But all of that has come from playing on the basic, innate, prehistoric traits that we have, that we believe in people. We believe people that we know and trust. We don't question it. And in certain countries, and Britain's one of these, we have a class system where for at least 1,000 years, people have been taught to never question those that are their superiors by birth and nothing else. And in most of those cases, only simply because their forefathers invaded the country in the first place. So there's no great reason for them to be classified as a superior, but we don't question. So when somebody with a very posh voice tells you this is how it's going to be, or this is how it is, then we have been conditioned as a country to believe that. And that upsets me. But I want people to have I want people to have the power of critical thinking, to actually question everything. You don't have to be confrontational when you question stuff. You just need to question it. Even if you just question it to yourself, go off and research it. There's a number of great sites now that do that work for us, that you put in there, is it true what XYZ minister just said on the news? And they'll and it will say no, actually factually that's incorrect. based on this old piece of whatever, which was wrong, but it's been carried forward. And I do that. I look at those a lot. It's important to question everything. Your boy Twiz, I don't trust anybody, especially when they tell me they'll fix all my problems. I don't need to think about it. Absolutely, mate. But, you know, I think people, certainly the people in the chat right now, you know, we are more worldly wise. We're exposed via the wonders of YouTube and gaming and in-game chat and so on to a much wider, broader intellectual offering than a lot of people that aren't. A lot of people that then education is the key. Education is the key. And I always say, I mean, I hated school. I hated it. I didn't go to university or college. I just really, I just couldn't see me extending the rest of, you know, the 4 or 5 years in education. But I always say, and this is again true in this country, I don't want to tarnish any other country with this, because I don't think it's the case in most other countries. But the reason that schools were the most comprehensive schools in the UK came about, and those are schools open to anybody without payment, was simple. It was because having destroyed the rural economy, or at least replaced it with mechanization and encouraged all of these people into factories, we became an industrial superpower, Britain, leading up to the apex, which was Victorian Britain, and in many ways a shameful time. But one of the things that was a problem for factory owners was that they couldn't get the amount of staff that they needed. And they recognized, factory owners, that if only they could get the mothers away from their children into the factories, they could double their staff. And so very generously, they began to build schools, and they put, you know, fairly mediocre teachers in them who did fairly mediocre job of teaching. But it released women into those factories. And that is the grain of where education started in this country, at the very least. For no reason. There was no objective at that time to better, you know, to make the world better for the average guy. In fact, they didn't want you to be educated if you worked in a factory doing the most menial, mundane, brain-numbing jobs. Why the heck would they want you to realize that the world was actually a really fascinating place and you could go to some parts of it and probably make your fortune? So it was, you were taught the basics, you know, the writing, reading, arithmetic, history according to the upper classes. So it was largely kings and queens of Britain, and battles that we'd won. Religion, because you may or may not know this, Britain is one of the only Western countries left where religion is part of the state. It's not a separate part of the state, it's part of the state. And so therefore it's always formed prominently. But essentially that's why it's begun to change, but it won't change while we still have a class system in this country. So yeah, pretty much the same thing here. I think it was also to teach kids how to grow into factory workers. Yeah, I mean, I didn't want to presume, but I think, you know, to a degree that's the case. Not always, of course, and summer holidays, summer recess, whatever it's called in your country, came about really to help your father to plow the field and bring in the crops for the year. So, you know, a lot of that is revolves, but nonetheless revolving around an industry of sorts. But that's my very jaundiced view of education. But I still believe that it is the ticket now, and there's no question when you look at voting in this country and America over the last 7 or 8 years, it is interesting to see how certain opinions are championed by those that you would classify as having had a fairly mediocre to low quality education. So, the secret is and always has been that higher quality of education is really important. I'm really proud because, as I said, I never went to university. My wife never went to university. We've both come from what you would classify in Britain anyway as a fairly low working class background. But both my daughters, my eldest has been at university now for a couple of years, and my youngest is about to start. And it's a great thing. It's a great thing. They're going to be exposed to great intellect, a wide mix of all sorts of people from all sorts of different walks of life from all around the world. They're going to be exposed to some amazing thoughts, and most importantly, they're going to be taught the ability to think. And that's the part, that's the only thing I wish I'd gone to university, really, because I never had the opportunity to be exposed to those kinds of people. It's been much later in life for me. But yeah, it is easy to be cynical. The world, as you get older, sadly, you do become more cynical. And it isn't just because you become a grumpy old man. It's because it all starts to make sense. Everything that you've just taken for granted, it's a bit like suddenly somebody tells you that Father Christmas doesn't exist, and yet you've believed it all your childhood. What are you telling me? I believed you. I trusted you when you told me that old fella came down the chimney. And then suddenly you find out from your peers that, it doesn't exist. It's mum and dad, really. And the world's like that. You as you get older, you suddenly realize Father Christmas in so many ways doesn't exist. All the things that I've taken for granted that I thought were the right thing and good things for me and other people, turns out that they may not have been, and they may not be. But gaming is, as I said, one of the things that I love about gaming is the relationships that I've made. And that's been extended in this period of my life, this content creating period of my life. Because I genuinely have generous people, generous in spirit and in kindness, and people who, I think we've all been in a very similar boat over the last 18 months. And some of us have been through far worse than others. And yet still, we find this commonality in gaming. And I think in many ways, the secret in bringing people together into the future is in these common interests. And of course, gaming is one, because you start with, everybody starts with the same base, right? We all have the same game, but anybody in the world can play that game, can enter into that game and communicate with other people that are playing the same game. You don't get a lesser quality game because you live in poorer parts of the third world. You get the same game. And as long as everything else is equal, so their access to the internet, their access to electricity, to reasonably affordable equipment, then we're all on a similar playing field. And that is a big key to the future, because in order for us all to discover that actually, once you strip away all of the kind of superficial stuff underneath, we are all the same. We may have different accents, we may look slightly different, we might be a slightly different shade of color. But, I often think in some ways, being blind is a blessing, because what it does is it takes away that, again, it's a primeval thing. We make split decisions, sometimes subconsciously, when we see people. We make a split decision. We do that because, again, we are thinking all the time about defending ourselves and our territory and our loved ones. But if you don't have the ability to see, then what you see is into the mind of the person that you're talking to, and you hear their intellect and their emotion and their drivers. You don't have that tainted by what you see. And one of the great things that I've always loved about gaming is that you normally only, obviously you can now, you can have You can have me on a screen and playing a game, and you'll all laugh at me. But when we normally play in a game together, we only hear our voices and what we're and sometimes we never see the people that we're talking to. And I think that's one of the great bonuses of community gaming, that you only hear the intellect, the emotion, the drivers. And we discover that we're all the same, even if we've got a slight accent or thick accent compared to us. I often think anyone that has an accent already has one over on me, because they are speaking a second language to their mother tongue. I can't do that. I can understand a few words of French, a few words of Spanish and German. But I can't converse with people from those countries until they speak my language, which is, I think that's so disrespectful. When we go on holiday or vacation to another country, one of before we go, I always buy a phrase book, and I always try to learn as much as I can. And when we're over there, I always try to speak to people in their language. Sometimes they get offended because they want to speak to you in English. And they're quite proud of the fact that they can, but I just feel it's respectful. If I'm in Turkey or Italy or Spain, I want to show that I respect that I'm in their country and speak their language and appreciate and respect their culture. So that doesn't bother me. In fact, I think it's amazing if someone has an accent, because it means they speak a different language to the one that they're talking to me in. And that is amazing that they are able to do that. As a Krampus, I defy common thinking and will still believe, yes, bless you. Krampus is... It's a Germanic tradition, isn't it? Krampus, the sort of the bad cop, Father Christmas, isn't he? And I say Father Christmas because Santa Claus is actually quite an American phrase. I don't think it's as old as you think either. I know, because I've researched this, I always called him Father Christmas when I was growing up. And when I looked into it, in Britain, in the UK, he's been Father Christmas for about 600 years. And obviously in France, you've got Papa Noel, which is Father Christmas in French, and other countries similarly. But Saint Nicholas is, I think it obviously was, it's all part of the migration of European cultures into America. But now Santa Claus has become fairly dominant in most of the world to talk about what I would always call Father Christmas. So, you know, that and Coca-Cola, holidays are coming. It's the Americanization of the world. And, you know, I used to think that was a bad thing, but I've started, as much as I think there are aspects to most cultures that really ought to have been kicked out by now, there is something to be said about the internationalization of culture, because again, it shows if we're all on the same page with the same values, then as long as we do not eradicate the culture that got us to this place, you know, then I think it at least gives us all a place that we can start from. And let's face it, we're in a world now where climate change is now a thing. It's no longer debatable. It's no longer a thing that could happen if we don't do this, that, or the other. It's now here. It is now about damage limitation. And the only way that we are going to ensure that our grandchildren or our great-grandchildren don't live in a world of you know, famine and flood is by working together. And I hope I've been very fortunate over the last 10 years to be able to work with young people, mentoring them at colleges and universities. And the one takeaway that I've had, and by young people, I mean, I'm 54, and so I'm talking about people that were, you know, born 80s, 90s and younger. And the one thing that I've found is that they are far more liberally minded in the sense of not being judgmental, not being nationalistic, being open-minded and tolerant, and wanting the right things out of the world than their parents my age or grandparents my parents' age. So I've always been very optimistic about the future. It's just, when can they get the baton? You know, they can't get it, in my book, they can't be given it soon enough, because what we're seeing at the moment in the hands of people like Murdoch, you know, who is tickling 100 years old and yet still has a grip on the global consciousness via his media empire of the world in his view, the world according to Murdoch, which I don't think is a particularly nice place, and certainly not one that I want to be living in. But he's still there, he still has his grip. And I think it's going to be another 20 years. And I just hope that the good that I have seen in those young people continues into their adulthood. And when they finally get the baton, at a point where probably they'll be wiping my ass, to be fair, and you know, wiping the drool off my face, that it won't be too late for them. You know, that they will be able to work with what we've left them with. Because it's like I said the other day, you know, we've been, that scientists have been talking to us since the 60s about what they have discovered, where they believe that the climate was going with ozone and so on. And the big problem is that almost all of us to a human said, somebody's going to have to sort this out. And that's the problem. It's always somebody else's problem. But I'm hopeful. I genuinely am. I think I am a half full person by nature anyway, as we started this conversation on. And I do hope that over the next 20, it's going to be about 20 years, I think. But, yeah, and a lot of you guys, a lot of you younger guys, the future belongs to you. And I know I can't wait for you to get it and do what you need to do, because I do think inherently humans are good. Inherently we are good. I think we become bad through a number of tweaks to our prehistoric selves, but we need to evolve beyond that, and it's not easy. You know, I mean, we are only hundreds of years into what we consider the technical age. Well, tens of years, sorry, not hundreds of years. And it's only a few hundred years since we were burning people at the stake because they refused to accept our religion, or whatever it was of the day, you know. So we shouldn't be throwing stones in glass houses, really, at other cultures, because they are still needing to evolve. We should be showing them by example, not by force, that there are better ways. Do you know, Krampus, it's weird actually, because Krampus, as a tech guy, been interesting perspective. I know you're talking about crypto. It goes over my head, my friend. I genuinely have tried. I know you've got into it, and I asked you back along about, you know, some inroads and stuff, but I don't trust it, and the reason I don't trust it is because ultimately, you know, I've seen the most secure technologies get hacked, and I had just a fear. And also, I mean, now you're in a situation, talk about climate change, you're in a situation where huge financial institutions are buying up power stations. And I watched a documentary about one just outside in New York State, where, you know, some great Wall Street conglomerate had bought a disused power station, which they got back into life to power warehouses of, you know, GPUs to mine cryptocurrency, pumping the crap back up into the atmosphere. It's just greed, isn't it? It's like, yeah, there's a way that we could make some money, and there will be. I know people are making money out of it. It's like those little those crypto GIF things, which I forget what they're called, RTFs, is it? You know, and there are people making millions there, and that's cool. But I tend to I shy away from stuff that's, if I can't immediately sum it up in my own head, I'm probably better not doing it. And I don't have a stocks or shares portfolio for that reason. I don't have the personality that requires me to sit there and properly learn it before I put my money where my mouth is. So I leave that. What's up? How's it going, Aaron? Great to see you, my friend. I'm just doing one of those incredibly rare talk to camera things. It's not even AMA, but you guys are more. I'm more than happy if you've got any questions you want to fire at me. I've talked inanely about my beliefs as far as religion and education go. But I'm yeah, got any questions, fire them away. I 54 years old. I've collected some thoughts. 50 flipping 4 thoughts on anti-vaxxers. Again, sadly misled. I mean, I get the whole concept that the whole kind of Orwellian concept of the man injecting us with something that ultimately allows them to control us. I get all that. It's a bit sci-fi, quite frankly. I know for an absolute fact, my daughter caught COVID a couple of weeks ago. She'd had one jab, as we call it in the UK, and it meant that she had a bad dose of the flu. If she hadn't have had one, I'd hate to think what could have happened. I know because I had pneumonia myself 2 years ago, that if I caught it without any form of vaccination, I probably would be in hospital. And yes, of course, there are those that have been vaccinated and they've ended up in a bad state. But actually, most of the people that are being hospitalized right now the world over have not had a vaccination. And so many of them, I saw recently a Republican died, and literally like the day before he was tweeting about being an anti, don't wear masks and vaccinations and stuff. And then the next day the guy dies, or the next week he dies from COVID. It's a real threat. And so I don't have a lot of time for it, but I do get, at the same time that I'm saying about the evil in the world, and it does exist, I fully understand that there is a fear about mass anything. It was only 70 odd years ago that my actual relatives were marched into Auschwitz and never came out again, because on my father's side, my grandmother and my great-grandparents were Jewish. Some of my relatives to this day live in Israel, and they came from Eastern Europe. Some of them lived in Poland, and they were treated abysmally. And it's only 70 years ago when a state decides to eradicate people that live in its own community. So I get that there is a fear. But I think it's like all of the fears of the last 7 or 8 years, it's been hijacked by those that have an alternative, see an opportunity to land grab minds. And trust me, it is not because they have the greater interest of the global population at heart. As far as I'm concerned, I hear what you're saying. I mean, Krampus, you're not going to give away what you do, but you are closer to it than I am, for sure. I think there is, without a shadow of a doubt, a greater risk of you being hospitalized with COVID for not being vaccinated than there is ending up with diabetes or some other ailment for being vaccinated. And I know that there are some people, but the cases are incredibly low. They're no worse than for the standard flu jabs. But what we do know, without a shadow of a doubt, because the statistics are there. If you watch, I'm going to just quickly have a look and see what he's called. I might even share you on screen if I can find him, because the man is a god in my book. Let me see if I can find it's only be under my subscriptions, I guess. But it's just that I forget his name. He's a doctor. And is it library? It's not history. subscriptions. There we go. There's the very man. Right, let me pull him up on the screen and show you. This guy walks on water for me. I'm going to mute him anyway. I'm going to pause him. And then I'll just share him on screen with you so you know. Yeah, oh, there's money being made, Twiz. No doubt. No doubt. You want to know about money being made? This country, the contracts that have gone out to old school chums and stuff. Bad news. Bad news. And yeah, I don't know if you had it outside the UK. We had a thing called thalidomide in the 60s. And yeah, we ended up with kids being born with severe deformities. But again, you ain't walking away from COVID if you haven't had a vaccination. And everyone who's dying right now from COVID has not been vaccinated. And that is an absolute fact. And I'm able to say it's an absolute fact because of this man. And I'll just share him now. And I'll get rid of that. And I'll put me over the top of this fella. So this guy is called John Campbell, Dr. John Campbell. And yes, he is a retired doctor. But he does the most amazing, unbiased, unpolitical, day-to-day, every day, does the most amazing reports and updates from a medical physician's perspective. And this man, for me, has been the chapter and verse during COVID. As you may or may not see, I'm not sure how much of this you can see. His videos are 300, 400, 500,000 views every single day. He's got over 1 million subscribers. He is called upon now from all over the world for his opinions. And I urge you to at least watch a couple of his videos if you've got any concerns, because this guy does approach it all really rationally. I'm glad you guys have watched him and follow him. I have been a bit of a champion of his, to be fair, but I love the fact that he comes at it from around the world as well. So he doesn't just blab on about about England or the UK. He talks about what's going on in the States. He talks about what's going on in Europe, Far East, Middle East, all over the world. Really, really, really good. This guy for me deserves a knighthood, but he won't get it because he's not flying the flag for one particular party or another. But good stuff. Great stuff. So yeah, my thoughts on it are, I agree that you should go into everything with your eyes open. I started earlier by saying, I believe in critical thinking. I looked at the pros and the cons. I saw people were falling left, right, and center. And I, as much as I maybe had to shut one eye as I was getting injected, I decided that it was the best thing. And so far, I've not had any. I didn't even know, to be fair, I didn't get any side effects at all from my vaccinations. And I'm still here to tell the tale. And every additional day that we live is a blessing. Yeah, we talked a lot about vitamin D, and I took vitamin D for a bit. But ultimately, right now, it's not immunity from COVID anyway. It simply lessens the symptoms so you don't get hospitalized. So, as he says here, good nutrition, vitamin D. I mean, lots of lifestyle stuff. Clearly, social distancing. That for me, these are obvious things. But there are those that okay, look, you cannot have your cake and eat it. If you don't want to be vaccinated because you have fears about the safety of it, or the whatever money is behind it, or what have you, that's okay. But don't come breathing in my face. Wear a mask. Oh, but you don't want to wear a mask either because of civil liberty? Well, then you've got a problem, my friend, because I don't want to breathe your germs. You've already admitted to me that you've got no interest in protecting yourself from COVID. Well, stay away from me. And it's interesting because in the UK on the 19th of, I think it was the 19th of July, they pretty much took the took the sort of the blinkers off and said, okay, you can go to clubs, you can, go to shops, go on public transport, whatever, without having to wear a mask. And there was huge fear that a lot of people would do just that. But actually, most people have been really sensible about it. I mean, my wife and I, today we went to a garden centre kind of thing that elderly people do. And we walked around a little village and stuff, but where we were with lots of other people, we put our masks on. And not because of me fearing to breathe in. I've had 2 vaccinations. But because, my daughter's just come through COVID. Now, I know I've been tested and I'm clean, but I don't want them to potentially pick up something I may be carrying. For what? For the sake of putting a piece of cloth over your mouth. It's hardly, we're not talking slavery here, are we? In the scheme of the lack of liberty, it's probably about as shallow as it's ever got. So if you're not going to get vaccinated, then you can at least have the courtesy of wearing a mask so you don't breathe over me. That's how I look at it. No, the viral people, look, vaccinations do not make you immune to COVID. You can carry COVID and be vaccinated. But what happens is either you're asymptomatic, okay, and you can be if you're not vaccinated. But if you go down with it, it's going to be like having the flu. It's not likely to put you into hospital. If you're not vaccinated, there's a much, much higher potential that you will end up in hospital. And as we've seen, hospitals are not built for pandemics. Then they're designed for fairly low level interaction with A&E and stuff. So the problem we had was, and why the vaccines were rushed out, because I actually think, to be honest with you, that if there wasn't a load on hospitals, they probably would have just allowed it to run its course. But we were about to see the collapse of our medical infrastructure. So we had to do something, and this helps that. But, at the end of the day, you've got to live with yourself. You've got to make your own choices. Nobody is, as yet, making it a legal requirement to be vaccinated or to wear a mask. Certainly not in my country or your country. So it's your choice. My personal choice was to be vaccinated. I'm pleased that I did. I'm quite happy with the results. I'm really pleased that when my daughter had COVID, she'd had a vaccination, because it meant that she had a fairly easy ride of it. And I will wear masks. I will wear a mask. To be honest with you, I don't even think COVID's the start of it. I think that we're going to, for various, not just because of climate change either, but largely because of climate change, I guess. But we're going to be seeing the rise of all sorts of viruses, because we've created a world where we're not exposing ourselves so much anymore to stuff. But I don't think that, having said that, not vaccinating is the answer in this case. In my country, Krampus, I am reliably informed, there are people that are, because we have, I don't know if you guys, I know you guys have an app through Google and what have you, but I don't know if you have similar setup to us. So we have an app which basically pings, it's a little notification, essentially. If you've been within so many feet of someone carrying the virus for, I think, over 15 minutes, so there's a strong chance that you may have been exposed. And it, interestingly enough, it was only because my daughter got that notification that she then subsequently got tested and found out that she was positive. But the thing that I've heard yesterday, when someone told me, is that there are people who are unscrupulously taking their phone into all sorts of places randomly, just so that they might get a ping and they can then stay off work for 10 days, which I think is, Jesus. N95, that's the way forward. That's the way to go to. Is they're the medical grade masks, and they as protective to you as they are to others. Whereas your basic piece of fabric is really just to stop you and I sneezing, catching the sneezes or the spurts of, But if you're out in the wild, I mean, my understanding is that most of the really, most cases are caught indoors anyway. Johan, how are you, my friend, my Transylvanian buddy? Good to see you. We were having a chat earlier. He was talking about the fact that 30s and 40s are pretty bad, and that, from what I understood, 50s are great. I struggle to get out of a chair these days, my friend. And I sat in a chair tonight, actually, earlier, and I thought, my toes feel numb. And I just realized that one of my toes is numb. Stuff just starts to drop off you in your 50s. You just suddenly wake up and realize that this thing doesn't work anymore like it used to. It's terrible. I felt really bad. When I turned 40, I really felt quite bad about turning 40. It felt a milestone. I suppose in a way, most of us don't live to be 80, do we? Statistically, I think it's dropped now in the UK. We got up to about 77. It's come down to about 74, I think, recently. So when you hit 40, you've actually hit middle age, really, technically. So I suppose when I hit 40, I thought, oh, damn. Of course, I'm 54 now. There's no way I'm going to be 108. Not a chance in hell. Why do I say that? You think about all the men you've ever seen that are over 100. They are like pipe cleaners. All right. You never see a fat 100-year-old man. And I carry some weight around my waist. I think it's just, you can tell. You don't see any really, really old fat people. Let's be honest here. Right. It's not going to happen, is it? And I balloon. I'm currently losing weight. I'm trying to lose weight. And but I know if I don't take care, it will come back again. Whereas some people, like my wife, they're just thin. They just, doesn't matter what she eats, never puts weight on. I'm always saying to her, you'll be around 40 years after I've gone. Of course, she loves it when I talk that way, but it's probably a fact. So yeah, when I hit 40, I think you kind of think symbolically, it's middle age now. That's half my life gone. But it starts to fall off you in the 50s. So you feel it when you get into the 50s. I feel mentally, I feel great. And although I can't remember stuff, it's not that I believe, my understanding is that it isn't the memories that you lose, it's the triggers. So we have these little chemical triggers that trigger the memory. So sometimes you walk into a room and there'll be an odor. It might be a perfume or a flower scent or smell of baking or something, and it evokes a memory. You think, oh, that takes me back. That's the trigger. And as you get older, those triggers decay. The memories are still there, and the way you know they're still there is when you watch an old video, old family video that you'd forgotten all about, and you watch it and you go, God, I'd forgotten about that. And I remember now I used to wear that stuff, because the memories are always there. They don't go. But what we lose is the connector, the trigger that brings them back. And unless, of course, you have Alzheimer's, in which case you have huge holes in your brain. I mean, you're losing all sorts of stuff. But do you know when they started to go for me, actually, was when my kids were born, because both the little buggers they both slept terribly, and there's 4 years apart between them. So just as the older one got to the point where she was actually sleeping quite well, the younger one came along and repeated it. So I had like 8 or 9 years of bad sleep, and sleep deprivation is definitely a way to destroy your cognitive ability and your memory and your memory triggers. Buggers is well, yes, it is a British word. It's not a nice one, and I apologise for using it. It's just it's like wanker in this country. It doesn't really mean a great deal, but they do. Smells and sounds and seeing people. You know how you you're walking down the street or you're in a bar or something, and you suddenly see somebody, and boom, you're taken straight back, and the years, they look different, but there's something about them, and then you remember them as they were younger and stuff. And you hadn't had those memories for years. They're all there. It's the triggers. And yeah, so it's my triggers are terrible. They're really bad. My wife remembers some amazing stuff. She remembers every nuance of every holiday we've ever been on, and trips we've taken, and characters in books and films, and they've all gone. And it's horrible because I desperately, I cannot remember so much of my daughter's early life, because those memories have all been buried and the triggers have been destroyed. And I need my wife to remind me, or I need to see old photos or all that kind of stuff before it comes back. And it's horrible to know that you can't remember. Very often, every day, my family will say, "Oh yeah, do you remember when we went to such and such?" And I'm like, "I've never been there." It's just, "Dad, you were with us." So I've never been there. And I've got to go there, whether in person or on Google Earth or whatever, for the memory to get triggered. That's horrible. It genuinely is. It's horrible. And I'm finding it more and more, when I've been doing shows just over the last year. And if you go back and watch my stuff, whether it was with Chase or I was on Stadia Source or what have you, and I'm brought on to talk about my thoughts on games and stuff, I've got quite a good recollection of the detail. And yet a year later, when I watch stuff in the same position, I'm struggling. You can see me. I'm going, "Oh, what's that game called? I can't remember. Oh, I don't remember that game ever coming on." And that is that process of those triggers decaying more and more just in the short term. So those are the kinds of things that happen when you get to your 50s. It's not your general state of well-being, because I know that I'm, 10 years away probably from proper retirement, which isn't a great deal of time. So already I'm starting to you can't help it. You just do it. You sort of start to wind down and get into gardening and stuff. But equally, doing this kind of a thing and gaming, what that does is it keeps your mind, your triggers operating. And gaming's actually really good for things like that, and reflexes as well, mental agility. But I since the dawn of Twitter, I can pinpoint it. 2007. I think I got my Twitter account in 2007. I know my ID, my user ID for Twitter is a really low number, because now it's like, member 100 and something million, and like back there it was mine's in the thousands. And that was the time when I got into social media, and now I can't read a book because I've got so used to 256 or 250 characters or whatever it is. I spend all my time reading snippets, and therefore I struggle to read a book. And that's so bad, because books are fantastic for mental agility, particularly factual books. I love factual books. I don't really read fiction. I love reading things like American history. I'm a massive interest in American history, and but not just modern American. I mean, when I say modern, not just the last 500-600 years of American history either. Fascinated by the continent in itself. It's an amazing place. So factual stuff. I love remembering facts. But I'm the kind of person that I always say this as well. People say, "Oh, you know so much." And I always say, I actually know I know a little about a lot, versus some people that know a lot about maybe one or two topics. And that's amazing, actually. Those people are specialists in certain things. I just try and have a wide knowledge, a little bit of knowledge about lots of things. Roger, gaming, I genuinely think that gaming does keep us young. And I think there's a number of reasons. One of them is that there's no one age group that games. So, I could be playing with a couple of 15, 16-year-olds, and those guys are playing with someone in their 50s. So you get exposed to the different cultures, and not just across the world, but social demographic and chronological. And you hear phrases and terms, and the English language, it constantly evolves. There's new phrases all the time. Penge. Is penge a thing? Am I just made that up? I hear people talk about penge and goat. All these phrases. I'm like, what the heck are you talking about? They find it funny, of course, the young'uns, but I love it. It's fascinating. Krampus, the key is knowing that line between what you know and what you think you know. And Adam, you know where that limit is, and what I respect so much about conversation. Well, thank you, my friend. Yeah, I am definitely no expert in anything, and I would never try or want to, fake a knowledge in something. I know a little about a lot, and that's the thing. Because I have a wide interest, general knowledge interest. I'm fascinated in talking with people from all walks of life and all countries. You you actually speak amazing. Your written and vocal English is amazing. I mean, it genuinely is. It's fantastic. I don't know if that is just picking it up, from being exposed to American and English culture, or have you lived in English-speaking countries? Because it is fantastic. Yeah, yours. I won, you and I own. I don't know how you pronounce it. You did tell me once, but triggers, mate. Because I'm fascinated. This guy lives in Transylvania. Transylvania lives in all of our cultures because of Bram Stoker, right? So it's fascinating to me, and I get to talk to people about the country they live in because of this medium and gaming, and you find out very quickly. I love it and some people hate talking on call centers because typically a lot of them are based in India. But I actually love it. So when someone comes on and they're obviously in Indian, I'm fascinated. I'm asking them where are you in India? What's the weather like at the moment? How are things for you? I just love to find out how people live. And it's that part of history that I love as well. I'm not interested in kings and queens and battles and dominance and domination. I'm interested in how ordinary people lived, what their day-to-day existence was, how they talked to each other, what drove them, what made them be who they were as people. That's what fascinates me more than anything. I think everyday ordinary people, not the whole kind of, and the Anglo-Saxons and the Vikings came along, and then the Normans invaded, and then they became the kings, and I don't care about that. That's a whole other subset. Something I picked up first from gaming. There you go. Then the internet. Then I started reading fantasy books and was annoyed by the bad translation. Started reading English. That's amazing. And you genuinely do have a fantastic grasp of the English language. I only wish I could speak another language like it. And my old history teacher used to say that, we kid ourselves, the British, in thinking that the world speaks English. They don't. They speak American. They speak American. And he always used to say, that American language could have gone in a number of directions. It could just as easily have been Germanic or Italian or Swiss, Austrian. It could French. Could have gone off in a number of directions. It just happens that because the English kind of were there towards, the 18th century, that became the language that was adopted. Because of that, of course, I am incredibly fortunate that it has become the international language. But truthfully, that's nothing to do with England. And in many ways, I wish that America had gone down the route of speaking French or German or Spanish, because that would mean that I would almost certainly be speaking whatever their language is as my second language. And that's a good thing. Justin, my very good friend, how are you? People take out the dramatics. You're absolutely right. Absolutely right. Strip all that stuff out. We talked a lot earlier, or I talked a lot earlier about the fact that actually we're all very prehistoric, and our traits all stem from our prehistoric selves, and you have to recognize that the same as you do with Justin. Has a pack of dogs, and they're very much Justin's pack. Justin is the alpha male, and it's the closest thing I've seen to a domestic wolf pack, and he gets it. He understands that is, that dog is at the end of the day a descendant of a wolf, and the traits that you see are not because they're trying to be human. They are simply enacting what is inherent in their genealogy, that the instinct of a wolf. And all people that work with dogs get that, and they don't treat them as pets. They treat them, they respect their their origin as a wolf, and that's important. It's because of the dominating nations. Greek and Latin probably dominated ancient era, like now, like Russian, dominated in Eastern Europe after the Second World War. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, and a lot of those cultures resent the fact that American English has become the dominant language. I don't think we're not into a free ride just yet. It didn't take long after World War I for World War II to happen. And I know, there's so many dystopian novels about World War III and so on, but we're not out of the woods yet. It could still happen. I didn't think in my lifetime I would see some of the things that I've seen, some of it firmly in the realm of science fiction in terms of pandemics and the rise of the far right, and that stuff that I thought was dead and buried, but it's still there. My parents in school had Russian classes. Yeah. Just because we were on the wrong side of the wall. And as I was saying earlier as well, with my ancestors on my dad's side came from Eastern Europe. There's some debate. For many years as a kid, I was always told they came from Russia. And then after a little bit of research, a few people said, no, actually, because they came from Poland. And then with a bit more research, it turns out they're more likely to have been from Lithuania or Latvia. But either way, at the time that they migrated through to the UK, it was probably part of the greater Russian state, Prussia. So, they weren't wrong when they said they were Russian. And they were, as I said, they were Jews. They were fleeing persecution, no doubt. Roger, I think nature always wins. Nature doesn't have to rush into anything. It always wins. You know what it's like. I mean, look at what happened after Chernobyl, talking about Eastern Europe, Ukraine. When humans stayed away within thousands of miles, hundreds of miles around where the disaster took place, because it was radioactive, they stayed out. And look how nature came back. They now have, great colonies of animals that had virtually been wiped out, living. I mean, within decades, it's gone back to the way it should be. A great ecosystem. And so I'm under no illusion if we go, nature just does its thing. Nature is, at the end of the day, nature is the unifying force. And it's universal. It's not just on this planet. The whole. I mean, what is nature? Who knows? What is it? Is it serious? Is it a set of universal algorithms? Who knows? Who knows? I mean, one thing's for sure, I don't, and maybe we never will. But it is. I wish more people would spend time just contemplating the basics. Why are we here? Why? Why is it that every living thing has this one unifying force, procreation, this deep desire to create a clone as best as it possibly can of itself? Why is that? Why? Why can't a thing be one thing but live forever? And is it because you can't, because of the atomic clock and the atoms decay, and therefore you're always in a race against the natural decay of the atom? Therefore, you need to clone yourself as best you can, because you ultimately will fall apart. Atoms decay, don't they? I mean, we know this. So maybe that's why. But then, how did that come about? I don't know. I could sit here and hypothesize and opinionate, but I don't know. But I think the fact is, we all need to do more of that thinking. And it isn't, whatever we think is probably wrong. They just, I think the other day, Einstein just never ceases to amaze me. The other day, they proved yet again one of his theories about what could be seen on the other side of a black hole. I don't know, I have no idea. Mine's immeasurably superior to ours. Came up with how they proved this. But this is a guy, he was World War I and World War II, saw them both, was, left Germany. I think he came from Germany. I know he's Jewish, obviously, but I think he left obviously around the rise of the Third Reich and what was happening to the Jewish people, went to the States. But this is this guy just came up with unifying theories that to this day have not been surpassed, without computers, pretty much on his own. I mean, there was a community of physicists and so on that kick this stuff around amongst themselves, and even in his day by letters and meetings and stuff. But they had no computers to prove this. This is all theoretical, and every year goes by, another part of it is proven. Dude, you're always welcome. Cheers, Just. Yeah, I wish I could sleep like you. This guy ran up. Was it a mountain you ran up earlier for some stupid amount of time? One of the fittest people I know. Just recently moved, and you look so happy in your new environment. Just you are an inspiration, my friend. Thank you for popping in. Really, really appreciate it. So where are we? I've been yabbering for the best part of an hour and 45 minutes. And bless you all for sticking around. I really appreciate that. I don't do this very often because there's a limit to what I can talk to you about, to be fair. You hear my theories and espousements once, you've heard them all. But I really do appreciate the time and the fact that you've stuck around as well. I hugely respect all of you for the support and the love that you've shown me. Thank you, Zero. Appreciate that, my friend. And I sincerely hope that I will be able to continue. At the moment, it's a struggle with the amount of effort that I'm having to put into the business. But you know what it's like. If you stop pedaling your bike, it's a lot harder to get back on it. Thanks, Krampus. Appreciate it, my friend. Dave, I'm just about to go, my friend. I've been almost 2 hours on the yap here. Bless you. Thanks for popping in, though. I really appreciate it. What was I just saying as well? Yeah, when you stop doing something as often as I was doing it, it's actually harder to get back and do it again. And even like this session, I thought long and hard, and I thought for a bit I might just do a private thing, and then I just hit the go live. I thought, oh heck, just do it. And it's great, and thank you so much as well for supporting me, turning up. If you enjoy it, I will do it again, but I can't promise you when. But I do appreciate that. No, Dave, it's always an absolute pleasure, my friend. Thank you. And I know, I may or may not do my Tuesday thing, but I know that not everybody can turn up at 5 in the afternoon or 10 in the morning, as it is for like Ray, for example. It's an odd time because, of course, it's when Google have just woken up. So, it's like, right, 10 o'clock, we've been on the go for an hour, let's push this thing out. But for people on my side of the pond, they're either just finishing work or they're just about to have their evening meal. So it's not great. It's not an ideal time, to be fair. Rokk reveal, but I do appreciate that. We get a cracking audience. We can we can get up to 40 people, and trust me, in this community, that's good, because it's, there are only so many of you amazing people to go around, particularly when obviously you've got your apex guys like Sonny and Bill and Lloyd, and Bryant at Nerf, who, and then the up and coming guys like Clive and Jem, who, regularly get decent scale audiences. But for people like me, and I'm not honestly saying this in any kind of poor me sense, I'm not doing this to build a massive career in it, because I know that to do that, I don't have the skill. I don't have, I'm not someone that you guys want to see every day, and I don't play games online, so you don't want to hear this old fellow wittering on every day. So, I'm very much aware that there is a limit, and I really appreciate it when you guys come along and give me your time. I really do. And Ubuntu, hello to you, my friend. Thank you for I'm just about to go, but thanks for popping in. So yeah, 5:30 a.m. to 8 p.m. 7 days a week. Wow, now that's not good for your health, man. That is not good for your health. I mean, it's different if you run your own business, because at the end of the day, you're sort of trying to build something, aren't you? But wow, them's hours, pal. Ouch. Them's hours. But let go and get some sleep. It's truth. Guys, thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. I do mean that. And I will see you on Tuesday for Rokk Reveal. You're a shopper. There you go. You got your own business. So good on you. You, my friend, you and I, we are the wheels of industry. We're keeping the country moving. I hope it's working out okay for you. I know anybody that has had, anyone that has a business that relies on face-to-face custom has struggled over the last 18 months. So my heart does go out to you. I hope you're doing okay. It's been a lot easier for me, because my business, we didn't even, pre-pandemic, we didn't even see most of our clients. We didn't need to, what we do. So, but you guys, and also, I don't know obviously what you have in your shop, but what I do know is that since the rise of A, the supermarkets, and B, the hyper internet based Amazonian supermarkets, your life's not easy. And I pine for the days when I was a kid and my mum would take me shopping, and we'd go down to the local shops, and it would be a street with the bakers and the butchers and the fruit and veg guy and the toy shop and the sweet shop, and they'd all know you. And those days are, they're not around anymore, and I really miss that. It's not easy, mate, running a shop. My mum and dad had a fruit and veg shop, and we lived above it for a few years. My dad's done all sorts, but we lived above a fruit and veg shop. So I know the hours it takes. I know the toll it has on a family. Yeah, it's probably one of the hardest things that you can do. And ultimately, most cases, to make pennies on the pound in terms of what you sell. So it's all about volume. And you're competing. You're competing with supermarkets, and if you're not competing with supermarkets, you're competing with Amazon. And neither of them care about your failures or successes. So, tip of the hat to you, my friend. Tip of the hat to you. I genuinely respect you for that. I couldn't run a shop. I couldn't. It's not. I couldn't. There's loads of things I couldn't do. I couldn't run a pub. I could have been a police officer. And my one regret in life is that I didn't do that. That was a definite route open to me. My mum, on my mum's side, all her grandparents and uncles and parents, all kind of police or prison service. And I really wish now that I'd gone into that, because I know the kind of copper I'd have been, and it would have been a fair one for a fairer society. And I miss that I didn't do that. That's my big regret in life. Oh, that's a shame to hear, Dave. Mate, you got to take some time out. Have you not got family that can step in for you? You just shut the bloody thing down for a couple of weeks and get out. Go to a nice long weekend or something. You've got, look, at the end of the day, and I'm sure everybody says it to you, but it's all well and good. But at the end of the day, buddy, you're doing it for your family, aren't you? That's what we're all doing this for, aren't we? You know, nobody is going to. No one's going to put it on your gravestone. We didn't see much of him, but he ran a cracking shop. It's like, it's not. You don't want that. Take some time out, friend. If you can't get someone in to run the shop for you, just shut the bloody thing down for a couple of days and see it so lost. Yeah, I know. Nobody runs a business like you. I started this whole conversation earlier on saying the reason why you don't see much of me at the moment is because I've rediscovered the secret source of my business, which was me. And I don't mean to be arrogant or, I'm not saying that because there's anything particularly special, but a business is a success because of the people that start the business. Even when they sell it on, it's never the same. A shot shop? What's a shot shop? Do you mean you run a shit shop? Or do you sell shot? I mean, it's maybe for Olympic shot putters or something. You've got a very unique product. No wonder you're open all the hours of the day. Well, no matter what it's like, take some time out. Maybe you're a workaholic. Maybe it's difficult to do, but your family has to come first. I personally would shut the business down and take a hit on my profit for a couple of days just to spend some time with my family. I think that's so important. Build it into your business plan. Exactly, Roger. Honestly, that's all I've ever done. I'm not money-minded at all.
I'm not sure I understand.
Well, I didn't ask you to understand me, Siri. Of course you don't understand. You're part of Apple. I'm not money-minded or money-oriented or in any way a consumer. I don't have a car. I don't drink. I'm not into food. I don't wear expensive clothes at all. My clothes are the clothes I typically get from other people at Christmas. That's not what I get out of running my business. It's certainly not money. It doesn't interest me at all. As long as my family are fed and housed and happy, that's it. Yeah, well, but I'm in the same boat, bud. I've got a mortgage, but I can only advise. And honestly, there'll come a day when you'll look back and say, was it worth it? You've got to find that time. Having said that, I don't know your situation. I do know that all shops were hit hard over the last 18 months, and those that were able to open up again at the end of it have, carry a lot of baggage. So I understand the position you're in. I really do, and I sympathise. And quite honestly, I think that's the story of so many businesses, isn't it? And there are so many that never made it through. That just, there's just no way. It just finished them off. And some that were just managing to survive with the advent of supermarkets and Amazon, just managing to hang in there by a thread. And then you get something that says, actually, you're not going to trade for a year, or, however long lockdown was, because we had it kind of two phases, didn't we? So I can't. I'm not going to judge, mate, because I don't know the situation you're in. But if you can find the time to spend some time, particularly with your 14-year-old, my friend, I'd urge you to. Right. On that note, it's the start of a new week. I hope it's a good one for you all. Let's hope it's a good one for us all. There's so much bad news. Just remember that money is made in bad news. It's in the interest of newspapers and TV to peddle it. And the world isn't all doom and gloom. Amazing things happen every day to ordinary people. So chin up, move forward, take care of yourselves, take care of those around you, and spread joy. I'll see you Tuesday night. I really appreciate your time. You take care, everybody. Love you. Hang on, where's my button? There it is.